Good afternoon. We're coming back on the air right now because President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump about to appear in the White House for the victims of that deadly shooting in Las Vegas overnight, the deadliest mass shooting in American history. You see the White House staff assembled there on the lawn waiting for the President and the First Lady, the color guard, coming out now as well. And here comes President Trump and the First Lady. Vice President Pence, his wife Karen there as well. President, the First Lady, Vice President Karen Pence heading back into the White House now after observing that moment of silence for the 58 dead, 515 wounded in that shooting in Las Vegas last night at a country music festival. You see the White House staff flanked there on the lawn of the White House as well. I'm here with our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross. And Brian, we're learning much more now about the shooter, Stephen Paddock, 64 years old. According to police, he acted alone, killed himself, as police came upon his room in the Mandalay Bay hotel, still searching for a motive.
That remains a mystery. We do know he spent several weeks stockpiling weapons and ammunition, made his plans carefully, had somehow obtained a very hard-to-obtain automatic weapon, which he used in his attack. But for this moment of evil, he was a very unremarkable person. At age 64, he had moved to a retirement community outside Las Vegas. His brother has described him as somebody who was not political, not part of any religion, not a white supremacist, was a man who had some money and lived mostly to play video poker, according to his brother Eric.
Unremarkable, perhaps, but senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas, a man who had built up quite an arsenal, 19 guns, according to your sources, in that hotel room that we see he blew the window out of right there.
George, he came armed to kill, multiple guns. As you said, our sources telling us roughly 20 guns, 19, one specifically told me that he had in that room as he fired down upon those unsuspecting people trying to enjoy a beautiful Sunday night of a concert, George. Again, law enforcement right now trying to determine where those guns came from, trying to determine if they were bought automatic, some of them, if they were augmented to become automatic. Right now, huge investigation underway looking at this man's background. No ties to international terrorism so far. Nothing remarkable in his criminal background to suggest he would do anything like this so far, George. And the authorities have knocked down, the FBI agent in charge on the scene has knocked down a claim of responsibility on an ISIS website. I want to go to Matt Gutman on the scene. You've been reporting all through the night, all through the day, Matt. This was a scene of pure terror and panic that unfolded at about 10:07 Las Vegas time.
George, we were just inside that hotel, the Mandalay, moments ago, and we were able to see down into that concert venue. What we saw was incredibly disturbing. The debris of what hundreds and thousands of people left behind, lawn chairs, of course. There were still stretchers there. It looked like bandages on the ground. And perhaps what was most astounding was the distance between where that shooter was perched on the 32nd floor, all the way on that far side of the building, to the concert venue, several hundred yards away. And you think of the mass amount of bullets and rounds fired into there, you think that some of them must have missed. It was deadly accurate, all the more astonishing given how the vast distance between those two sites and the types of weapons that we think, or police say, that he was using, those AR-type rifles. Just a very disturbing sight to see right now. There are still first responders going through, they're combing through, and obviously forensics teams trying to find whatever evidence they can, or just pick up whatever pieces they can and any additional evidence. George.
Surveillance video likely to pick up more evidence in the coming days as well. And of course, this moment of silence for the victims of this massacre. Lindsay Davis has been at the University Hospital Center in Las Vegas, where they took in about 100 of those victims. And Lindsay, you've got every hospital in the Las Vegas area dealing with this trauma.
Of course, because we're talking about 515 people injured. Just to give you an idea of where we are. So we just moved a little bit away, but UMC is just across the street over here. And then in this parking lot here, they brought in a bunch of RVs, and this is just a pop-up impromptu blood drive. And just to give you a sense of that, at some of the locations, we're told there's a 5-hour wait. At this location, they're at capacity. So if you haven't already registered, they can't even take any more blood. It's just one way that the community is rallying around the victims. Just across the street, we have about a dozen people still fighting for their lives, 12 people still in critical condition, George.
So many fighting for their lives, and the trauma from this day is going to last well beyond today as well. The psychological trauma for the families of the victims, for those who are on the scene, Lindsay.
You're exactly right, and I think that that's the large thing that is so impressive about the community, is that they're eager to do whatever it takes. There's a GoFundMe page that they're giving donations to the victims. There are people who have signs with free water. They're bringing free food. There are free charging stations. Just trying to erase some of the ugliness of the day.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay Davis. Cecilia Vega, our senior White House correspondent. No words from the president at that moment of silence honoring the victims early in the day. He did call this an act of pure evil and called on all Americans to come together at this moment.
Yeah, George, the White House is saying that this is a day for consoling the survivors, for uniting this country. As you said, no words from the president there in that moment of silence. He has ordered all of the flags around this country flying on federal buildings starting here at the White House to fly at half-staff today. That is happening. The White House briefing just ended moments ago, and there were a number of questions in there for Press Secretary Sarah Sanders about the president's position on gun control, given what happened in Las Vegas today. They say this is not the place or the time for political debate, but surely this is a question that will continue to come back at this White House. I also asked Press Secretary Sarah Sanders if the president considers what happened in Las Vegas this morning an act of domestic terrorism. The White House wouldn't say. They say that this is premature, but George, to tell you that this is an emotional moment for those in this White House is an understatement. Sarah Sanders today, before she started the question and answer period of this briefing, had a very emotional moment at that podium, seemed to tear up as she was talking about the heroic acts that happened there in Las Vegas.
And as we've been hearing all through the night, so many acts of heroism in the wake of that massacre. Okay, Cecilia Vega, thanks very much.